Alrighty, so we're now up to match week number 15 of the 2024 MLS regular season, and the season in terms of these games are coming thick and fast because fresh off of a week after we have many teams play 3 games in 7 days. Once again, we're gonna have the same thing in this next 7 days, as many teams will play 3 games in 7 days, and before you know it, we're gonna head to Copa America, and also once we get to the middle of July, that's when we have the month break for Leeds Cup. Now, that being said, because there's going to be midweek games this week, it seems like the league decided that for the first time this season, all the games are going to be happening on Saturday night. There's not going to be an early game on Saturday. There's not going to be a Sunday game. All the games that's going to be happening on Saturday night. And usually, I'm not a big fan of that because that means there's going to be a ton of games that's going to be on at the same time. But when you look at this week, it's actually not as bad. Yes, there's going to be times where there's going to be 9 games that's going to be happening at the same time, but there's also a lot of West Coast game too. So that kind of spreads out a little bit where at least it's not going to be as challenging as it used to be in terms of trying to keep up as many games as possible. Though I said that, and again, there's 9 games that's going to be happening at the same time, and one of those 9 games, including one of 7 games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, is Atlanta United versus LAFC. So yeah, Atlanta is back home, but obviously, they have continued to struggle, and they're definitely looking to end their losing streak at home. It's hard to believe that Atlanta United have lost 3 straight home games, and that of course has never happened. And they're looking to try not to lose 4 straight home games for the first time in their club history. And it's not going to be easy because they're facing against a Compton LAFC side that are starting to get themselves together and get their grooves back to really once again challenging the Western Conference title. Now, in terms of all-time meaning, 2-1 and 1 in favor of Atlanta. Obviously, both of these teams play in different conferences. They don't usually meet very often. But the last time they meet, it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. And the last time they meet at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta won 1-0 in that one. Then it was a thrilling 4-3 win that LAFC had against Atlanta. And then in the first ever meeting, yeah, Atlanta basically walked past LAFC. They won 5-0 in that game against LAFC. And I remember that was of course from the inaugural season and kind of almost like a welcome to MLS moment for LAFC after they got a big win just previous week of getting their first ever win in franchise history. So yeah, no doubt that obviously again for Atlanta this is not going to be an easy game, but they desperately need to snap out of this. I mean, there's just way too much talent on this team to not snap out of it, and it's also going to be interesting to see Yakimakis in terms of his focus too, because again, there's been a lot of transfer rumors that he might be moving away from Atlanta, and when you're involved in those kind of transfer saga, yeah, the mindset could be a little different, and we'll see how he's going to perform. But there's no doubt that Atlanta desperately need 3 points, and certainly Gonzalo Pineda and Carlos Bocanegra is hoping that they get 3 points because their seed is probably really really hot right now, and those two guys might be the next two that could go if this winless run continue for Atlanta United. Now moving on, we got Charlotte versus the Philadelphia Union. So Charlotte 6-3-5, whereas the Union is 4-5-4. In terms of all-time meeting, the Union has the all-time meeting with a 2-1-1 record. But Charlotte has never lost to the Union when they play at Bank of America Stadium, and that includes a 2-2 draw in the last game before the Union did win 1-0 against Charlotte, and then Charlotte won 4-0 against the Union. And I remember that was one of the most surprising resort of that time because Union was absolutely rolling doing that point, and Charlotte basically just put a beat down on the Union that we usually don't see the Union suffer that much of a beat down during that time. Then the Union did win the first ever meeting between Charlotte with a 2-0 win. So yeah, this should be interesting, and especially again, because this is a Charlotte FC game, expect that there's probably not going to be a lot of action, and I know there's going to be some Charlotte fans who will be feeling it's a little bit boring in terms of watching their team play, in terms of how Dean Smith played, but it's getting their result. I mean, they're winning a lot of 1-0 kind of game. Now, obviously, there could be a chance that they could score more goals because, the Union, they have really struggled this season on the defensive front. But again, in terms of watchability rate, this might not be the game you want to tune in if you want to watch a great soccer game. Because, yeah, so far this season, most Charlotte games has been relatively boring to watch. But again, if you're playing boring soccer, but you're getting result, who cares how you are playing? Now, moving on, we got DC versus the Chicago Fire. So DC with a 4-5-5 record. They're currently in ninth place right now, so just above the red line. Whereas for the Fire, yeah, it's been a disastrous season. They're still on that winless run, and their record is 2-4-8. In terms of all-time meeting, of course, both of these teams made each other but the Fire does have a slight edge with a 28, 22, and 27 record over DC United. Last five head-to-head matchup, yeah, it was not pretty. In the last time that Chicago played against DC, Chicago lost 4-0 to DC. Before it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. Then Chicago won 1-0 against DC. Then Chicago did win 2-0 on the road against DC. Before DC winning 3-0 against the Chicago Fire. So this should be an interesting kind of matchup. I mean, obviously, expectingly DC should win this game because again the Fire, unless if they can get something thing going and really snap out of this losing cycle that they've been in, it seems like this is probably not going to be a game that they're going to do, especially against a DC team that this team would be much better if they can finish games up. That's been one of the problems for Troy Lesesne team, which is this is a good team. The reason why they're in ninth place right now is that they can't finish up games. They've dropped a lot of points this season in winning position, and they're hoping they're not going to do that against the Fire. I mean, if they do that, that's kind of the opposite of what the Chicago Fire do, because usually the Fire, they're the one that give up points and find boneheaded way to lose, not DC United. But we shall see if that is the case. Don't be surprised if there might be like a game in the last 20 minutes where both of these teams are trying to lose the game and trying to give the game away to a point where, yeah, I mean, it could be back and forth, at least if that is the case. Now, moving on, we got Montreal versus Nashville SC. So you could say that this is the desperation derby of the match week. I mean, there's definitely a couple of games that you can label desperation derby, but I think this is definitely one because, for Montreal, oh man, what a disastrous run this has been for Laurent Courtois. I mean, ever since the goodwill that he built on that 6-game road trip, it has not worked out well for him ever since he gone through the stretch where he has played mostly at home. And then to top it off, they lost in the Canadian Championship in the middle of the week. They become the second MLS team to lose to a CPL team in the Canadian Championship. And now they face against a Nashville side that, again, this is the second game without their long term time head coach Gary Smith, and this is the first time they'll do it on the road, and that there's still question of whether or not if they will get that new interim head coach boost now that Gary Smith is no longer on this team. But that being said, their record is 3-6-4 in terms of the all time meeting. Well, the good thing for Nashville is that they match up very well against Montreal. They won five wins with 2 draws and 1 losses to Montreal, and in the last 5 head-to-head meeting, it was a 4-1 win that Nashville has against Montreal, but Montreal did get their first win against Nashville at home in the last time both of these teams meet at Stade Saputo with a 1-0 win. Then Nashville won 2-0 against Montreal. Then Nashville won 2-1 against Montreal, and then Nashville was able to win on the road with a 1-0 win against Montreal. So again, definitely a desperation derby. Both of these teams could be much better in terms of how they should be. I mean, for Nashville, I would say that it's been an underachieving season because once again the attack is not there, but also the defense kind of fall apart. And then for Montreal, what is defense? Because yeah, it definitely has not been found for this team. I mean, this team has the worst defensive record. They are just leaking goals left and right. And I know injuries, of course, play a big part of it. But it's getting to a point where even with injuries, you should not be leaking in that many goals that Montreal, of course, is doing in these last couple of games. Now, moving on, we got New England versus NYCFC. So both of these teams couldn't be in an opposite direction. I mean, for New England, it's been an absolute disastrous season. I've even mentioned what happened in the middle of the week. There's some confrontation between Caleb Porter and the ownership group. It seems like there's a rumor that he missed a potential meeting that might be the meeting that actually put Caleb Porter on the chopping block. And then, of course, there's even numerous reports about the confrontation between him and the players, and that, yeah, it's not good that when you have that kind of situation, And especially when you have that kind of situation when you're facing against one of the hottest team in the Eastern Conference, that is NYCFC. I mean, after a slow start that they've climbed all the way up to third place in the East with a 7-2-5 record, while New England still the worst team in the league right now. 2-1-9 is their record. They're the only team to not have double-digit points total so far this season. Now, in terms of the all-time meaning, it's pretty close, 10-7-9 in favor of New England. But the last time both of these teams met, which was earlier this season, NYCFC was able to win 2-0 against New England. Then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. Then a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. Then New England did win 3-0 against NYCFC before NYCFC winning 4-2 against the New England Revolution. So, yeah, this could be the final game. We might see Caleb Porter in charge again. I think after all the reports we have heard in the middle of the week, I think some Revs fan and even myself were a little surprised that Caleb Porter is still in charge of it, because when you lose the locker room, as what we have heard the reports from, yeah, usually the chopping block is not far from behind, but he's still there, Caleb Porter, and that, again, if this is going to be a bad loss, yeah, there's no doubt Caleb Porter is going to get the axe. Now, if they do win this game, I also won't be surprised Caleb Porter might ends up on the axe, because if there's one thing we know this season is that, just because you win a game doesn't mean you're safe from your job. I mean, Gary Smith got fired after he won a game for Nashville. So yeah, it just feels like maybe this is kind of a situation where no matter what happened, Caleb Porter is a dead man walking, and that again, it just feels like maybe it's a matter of time before he is gonna let go, because of all these suggesting that he has just completely lost the locker room. And when you lost the locker room and lost the support of the players, it's no wonder why New England isn't in a bad run like they are right now. Now, moving on, we got Orlando City versus Columbus. So slowly, Orlando City is starting to get themselves back into contention. Again, a lot of the reason why they're back in contention is because they have a very good road record. Problem is they're playing at home in this game, and that's been the biggest issue with them this season. Only one win this season, and it doesn't help the fact that they're facing against a Columbus team that, during this 5 game road trip, it's been getting off to a good start for a Wilfred Nancy side. Now, granted, yes, they did play two of the worst team in the league during this road stretch, but hey, Columbus, they desperately need wins. They've been going through a bit of a rough patch because of battling CONCACAF Champions Cup and league play, and obviously they know that the CONCACAF Champions Cup is not that far away. In fact, after the midweek games that they play, I think that's the last game that they're going to be playing before they're playing against Pachuca in the final of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But before that, they could go on the road against an Orlando City side with 4-4-5 record, while Columbus 5-6-2. All-time meeting 10-4-7 in favor of Orlando, and the last 5 head-to-head matchup, Columbus of course won 2-0 against Orlando. That of course was in the playoffs, and this is a rematch of the second round of the Eastern Conference last year. But besides that, it was a 4-3 win that Orlando had against Columbus. Columbus had a 3-1 lead in that game, and they basically self-destructed in the second half. But before that, it was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams. Then Orlando won 2-1 against Columbus, and then Orlando did win on the road 2-0 against the Columbus Crew. So at least recently, if you don't count that playoff series, Orlando has had some good history against the Crew. But again, this team has just struggled at home. I don't know what it is with them struggling at home. This is a team that I would also say that in these last couple of seasons under Oscar Pereira, they have had these issue in terms of not getting home wins, and we've seen it before where if you don't get home wins, and no matter how good you are on the road, you can definitely find yourself behind the 8 ball, and that, yeah, we'll see whether if Orlando can fix that, and that it's not going to be easy when they're facing against a Crew team that, again, these last couple of games, it seems like they're finding their mojo, and I think a lot of that is because of the fact that they don't have to contend with CONCACAF Champions Cup and MLS play at the same time when they get a full week of rest. It's no doubt Wilfred Nancy's side has been really, really good, and this is also why I think Columbus is still going to be a good team, even after what happened in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final against Pachuca in just a couple of weeks. Now, moving on in terms of the next match, and I would argue this might be the best match of the week between Toronto versus FC Cincinnati, because you have one team that is not supposed to be this good this season. I mean, I think Toronto, there's no doubt that whatever John Herman has done to this team, he has just put yeoman's work with this team. there's no way in the world that as we're now approaching a halfway through the season, that TFC is still kicking it well in terms of the playoff spot at 7-1-6, whereas they face against a Cincinnati team that we knew that they were going to be a good team. Yes, they have some bumps and bruises along the way, but it feels like they're really starting to run away again. And that this is starting to be kind of similar to last season, where last season Cincinnati kind of got off to, I wouldn't say a slow start, but they definitely were struggling to really kick into gear, and then they basically ran away with it as the season goes along. And not to mention, they have one of the longest winning streak right now. I think their winning streak is now at 5 games with a 9-3-2 record. Now, in terms of all-time meetings, 6-1-4 in favor of Cincinnati. The last five head-to-head matchup, it was Cincinnati and Toronto with a 0-0 draw. And this was a matchup in the first game. I think, was it the first game or the second game of the season? It was one of those, and that was a really surprising result because, again, Cincinnati was heavy favorites coming into this game, and Toronto just walked into TKL Stadium and got a 0-0 draw, which is something you don't usually see that happen often with opposition coming into TKL Stadium. But before that, it was a 3-2 win that Cincinnati has against Toronto. Before Cincinnati had a 3-0 win against Toronto. Then Cincinnati had a 2-0 win against Toronto, and then Cincinnati had a 2-1 win on the road against Toronto. So Cincinnati has had their ways against TFC in these last five head-to-head meetings. But again, I think that, for TFC, this is a big chance for them to make a statement. I mean, if they can, not, I wouldn't say just get a result, but even just get a win in this game, that's a huge statement that they just made. I mean, it's a statement that they are not just going to back down, and that this miracle run that John Herman is working is not is not a complete outlier. And I also think that the reason why this miracle run has happened is because one, their defense has been much better, and Sean Johnson is looking like the Sean Johnson he was with NYCFC. But I think it's also the attack as well. I mean, those two Italians, especially Bernardeschi, yeah, they're starting to come to good, and I think that maybe kind of plays to what we thought that it was going to happen in 2023, where this could be a good team if things could go right for them. And right now, it seems like that is the case. But like I said, this is going to be a really tough game because again, they're playing against one of the best team in the East, if not the best team right now in the league besides Inter Miami. And yeah, they will definitely make a statement if they can pull off this big win against Cincinnati. Now, moving on, we got FC Dallas versus RSL. So speaking of good teams, RSL is definitely one of the best team in the league. I mean, they're at the top of the Western Conference right now with an 8-4-2 record. And also have one of the best road record this season, and they're going to try to get another win on the road against a Dallas team that, slowly Dallas has started to get themselves together. But again, their record is still not good, and they're still a little bit behind in terms of getting themselves back to playoff contention. Now, this is the first of only two games that's going to kick off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Normally, we have a lot of games that kick off around this time. Not this week, though. There's only going to be two that's going to be kicking off during that time. So there's not going to be a lot of Midwest games this week. But in terms of all-time meaning, 24, 12, and 14 in favor of Dallas. So if there's one thing that Dallas at least would be happy is the fact that they do have a good record against RSL. They do match up well against RSL, and that includes the last meeting where they were able to win 3-1 on the road against RSL before winning 2-1 against Salt Lake. And then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. Then Dallas won 1-0 on the road against RSL before they did lose at home to RSL with a 2-1 scoreline. So yeah, again, I think this is a matchup that, again, on paper, Dallas seems like they like to play against RSL, even though RSL is really good right now. And that, again, this also would be a game where I mentioned before with Dallas needing some statement wins to get themselves back on track. This definitely would be the one to do so, because if they can get a statement win against RSL, who has just been unstoppable these last couple of weeks, yeah, maybe things are starting to go well for Nico Estevez team. That being said, I am now going to change boards and look at the last six remaining games from match week number 16. Also, did I say match week number 16? I meant match week number 15. As 16 is going to be the next midweek action. But in the next game, we got St. Louis versus the Seattle Sounders. So St. Louis with a 3-7-3 record, while Seattle has a 3-5-6 record. Maybe argue this is a desperation derby as well, because both of these teams could be much better than they are. right now, and both of these teams are kind of mediocre right now this season. Though again, for Seattle, the last game they did get Pedro de Vega back in this team, and that's going to be huge for them. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to start the full 90 minutes yet, but he is a guy that as what we saw in the small sample size when he came off the bench, he really injected the life of the Sounders attack that pretty much have been lifeless throughout this season without him. Now, that being said, in terms of the all-time record, Seattle has won both of the all-time record with a 2-0-0 record. And in terms of the last two head-to-head, in those two wins that Seattle has, they won 2-0 on the road against St. Louis, and then they won 3-0 at home against St. Louis City. So they're looking to try to make it 3 out of 3 against this St. Louis team that, again, this season. One thing I will say about St. Louis is that they started to stop this habit of drawing games. I mean, this season, at least in the early part of this season, and even most recently, they just keep drawing games every single game, and that has to frustrate St. Louis fans of the amount of draws that they have. And at least I think they're still not. I think they're maybe still on point of potentially breaking the record that Nashville and Chicago basically held with 18 draws in a season. But also, they're still not winning in games that they should be. And again, we'll see who, of course, will win this one. Again, it's maybe a desperation derby because both of these teams were expecting to be better than they are right now in this season, and we'll see who, of course, gets that win. Now, moving on, in the next match, and this is definitely not a desperation derby. It's Colorado versus Minnesota. I would say this is probably the dark horse derby, or maybe the most surprising start derby, because the Rapids. I knew this season they were going to improve under Chris Armas. I didn't think they were going to be as good as they were. Now that being said, they did suffer probably the one of the toughest loss that they had last week, where they play well against RSL. They were going toe to toe with the best team in the West. They just did not have enough in the end and lost that one and have a 6-3-5 record. While Minnesota, they're looking to make history too, becoming the first team since the Galaxy to win 6 out of their or get yeah, to win 6 out of their first seven games coming out of the gate, and that yeah, we'll see whether they can do so. I mean, this team last season they were the Road Warriors, and they're looking to try to do so in this one. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, 8-2-7 in favor of Minnesota. By the way, this is the only game that starts at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And in the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was a 3-0 win that Minnesota has against the Rapids before Minnesota did win 2-1 on the road last time both of these teams meet each other. Though Colorado did win 4-3 against Minnesota in a game where I remember that was the game where I think Minnesota had a 3-1 lead in that one, and then they choked that game away. Whereas speaking of 3-1, Minnesota did win 3-1 against the Rapids before the Rapids did win 3-1 on the road against Minnesota, and that actually is still the only win that Colorado has ever had on the road against Minnesota at Allianz Field. So yeah, this should be a very intriguing matchup. Not to mention, one thing I'll say about Minnesota coming into this game, they're probably going to be the most healthy that they have ever been this season, because I think besides Bakara there's another their Loons player that is going to be out for this game. They pretty much have everybody available in this one, and in a season where I talk about how it's just a miracle the fact that they're second in the Western Conference despite the fact that there's definitely some players playing over their heads, and what Eric Ramsey has done to this team, just coming into this team and just really give not only the new head coach boost, but really get the team going is nothing short of miracle. But you got to remember they also been battling injuries too throughout this season, and the way that they've been able to still battle through injuries and still win games. Again, that's nothing short of a miracle. But again, this is not going to be easy because this is a Rapids team that they don't lose games at home very often, and they're probably very angry about what happened in the last game when they were outscored or outlasted by RSL. So yeah, this should be a very interesting kind of game. And again, these two teams, I think that both of these teams, I don't think anyone would expect how good they have been in terms of the season that they've been in, and one of these teams can continue that good run, and we'll see which one would be. Now, moving on, we got the Galaxy versus the Houston Dynamo. So this is the first of 4 games that's going to start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. That's probably the most we have ever had in terms of these West Coast game, which means something tells me there's going to be some craziness because you know that these late night game and those at MLS after dark kind of thing, yeah, it could happen in these late night game. And I will be surprised this might be one of those too, because again, the rule of thumb this season is that it doesn't matter what kind of scoreline it's going to be. Galaxy game are going to be entertaining to watch no matter what. Now that being said, the Galaxy surprisingly they've now drawn 7 times this season. So I talk about St. Louis of how many times they've drawn this season. They're actually no longer the draw kings of MLS. They're sharing that title with the Galaxy, and it doesn't feel like the Galaxy have drawn that many games. Again, maybe partly due to the fact that they've been playing so many entertaining games that ended in a draw. Whereas they face against a Dynamo team that has a 5-3-5 record. And in terms of the all-time meetings, 16, 11, and 14 in favor of the Dynamo. I'll tell you what, for a while, the Galaxy, they just hate playing against the Houston Dynamo. And I'm pretty sure the Galaxy are really thankful that they're not playing them on decision day, because for a while, it feels like they played the Dynamo a lot on decision day, and it always ends up in terms of being heartbreaks. But in the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams before Dynamo win 3-0 against the Galaxy. Then the Galaxy won 3-1 on the road against the Dynamo before the Dynamo won 3-0 on the road against the Galaxy. And then the Galaxy returned the favor. They win 3-0 on the road against the Dynamo. So at least the road team in the last 5 head-to-head meeting has had their moments in terms of this series. But yeah, again, would not be surprised if this is going to be an entertaining game because, like I said, it's the rule of thumb. The Galaxy are always going to play an entertaining game, and don't be surprised if there could be some high scoring in this game as well. Now, moving on, we got the Portland Timbers versus Sporting KC. So you could say that this is the game to see what happened once we get into last 15 minutes of the game. Who is going to be the team that's gonna decide to choke the game away? Because these are two teams that have not only gave up some of the most goals this season, but they've also gave up the most points, especially late in games. I mean, the Timbers they have a 3-4-7 record. They have given up so many goals that I think they have now given up 2 goals or more in the last 10 games, whereas they face against a Sporting KC side that the good news for them in the last game, they didn't actually gave up a late goal. That's feel like the first time in a while that Sporting KC had not give up a late goal, because that was just basically like that was basically like a routine that they've been going through. And that unfortunately the bad news about that is that they still lost that last game against Austin FC in a thrilling 3-2 game, and they're another team that have given up tons of goals. So that also means that this is probably going to be a game that there's going to be a lot of goals. That's going to happen in this one, isn't it? So all-time meeting, 3 wins, 3 draw, and 3 losses for both of these teams. And at least when you look at the last 5 head-to-head matchup, yeah, again, it just shows you that there's going to be goals. And again, the last meeting, we know what happened earlier this season. Sporting KC had a 3-0 lead, and then they proceed to blow that lead in the last 30 minutes and drew 3-3 in that one. Again, when we get to the last 20 minutes of this game, I'm pretty sure both of these teams would not want to have the lead, because they know they've seen it before this season, how many times their team have dropped points. But before that, Sporting KC did win 4-1 against the Timbers. Before it was a 1-0 win that the Timbers had against Sporting KC. Then Sporting KC won 4-1 against the Timbers. Before it was a 7-2 thriller that the Timbers had against Sporting KC. Won't be surprised if that could be a similar scoreline, because again, with the way that both defense has been pretty bad and both offense been really good in terms of how they attack, this could be a high scoring game. This could be a game where there could be no defense that is being played whatsoever, similar to what we saw with the Rocky Mountain Cup in the last game. And then watch how this game probably is going to end 0-0, because I've just said that. Because again, if you believe in jinxes, if you believe in me kind of cursing games, this game might turns out to be a boring affair. But something tells me it's probably not, because of the way that doesn't seem like either of these defense know how to defend in these last couple of games, and not to mention neither of these teams know to hold on to leads late in the game. Now, moving on, we got the San Jose Earthquakes versus Austin FC, and this is a game that is very similar to the New England versus NYCFC game, where one team on the road are red hot right now, that is Austin FC, and then the Quakes, yeah, remember how I said that game against the Timbers, after they lost that one, not only was a heartbreaking loss, but I fear that they're gonna trend in the wrong direction. Guess what happened? They lost the very next game, and then they proceed to once again get knocked out by the Sacramento Republic, and once again getting knocked out by USL Championship side in the US Open Cup. They mentioned that the Quakes have now gone 10 games without a win on the road in the US Open Cup. I mean, that is the most San Jose of Quake stats I would, if you ever could believe. I mean, they're making history, but just not in a good way. And speaking of bad record that they're owning, they are the team that currently has the most loss this season. 10 losses this season. They're the first team to reach that with a 3-1-10 record, while Austin is 6-4-4. Now, in terms of the all-time meaning, for a while, Austin just simply cannot beat this Quakes team. They finally were able to do so in the last game, but that was partially due to the fact that the Quakes decided that they didn't want to win another game against Austin and decided to choke that game away by losing 4-3. And by the way, speaking of high scoring game, don't be surprised this might be a game that could feature some high scoring affair because there's something about both of these teams when they play against each other that there's going to be tons of goals that's going to score because besides the 1-1 draw that they have, all the last other four head-to-head meeting has featured at least 4 goals in a game. That includes a 2-2 draw between both of these teams, a 3-3 draw between both of these teams, and then a 2-2 draw between both of these teams as well. So again, do not be surprised if this is going to be a high-scoring affair, and that's kind of how the Quakes are basically right now. There's no doubt that the Quakes have some attacking power, and what Hernan Lopez has brought to this team has just been nothing short of what the Quakes really need on the attack. Unfortunately, though, besides Montreal, I think this team has probably the worst defense in the league, and they definitely have the worst defense in the Western Conference. And when you have a really bad defense and you have a pretty okay attack, that's not enough to override the problem that the Quakes have had. And these last couple of games has just pretty much a microcosm of the Quakes. Good enough on the attack, not good enough in the defense to win games. Now, moving on, in the last game of the week is Vancouver versus Inter Miami. Now, there's no doubt that this game, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this game because yesterday Inter Miami basically said that they are not going to put Suarez, Messi, and Busquets to play in this game, and there were a lot of outcry in Vancouver and a lot of upset people in Vancouver, and I can understand that is the case. I can understand that you pay a huge amount of money and paying over $200 or even $300 to see Messi play, and the fact that you found out he's not going to be playing, yeah, that could be very frustrating to see. That being said, though, I think this is just kind of a reminder to a lot of the fans that is lucky enough to see Messi play, especially when you're hosting Inter Miami, that there's no guarantee that the greatest player of all time will be playing on any given day. If Inter Miami decided to rest some of their guys, and I think it's understandable why they decided to do this, considering they got 3 games in 7 days, they have to go on the road and then travel all the way back to the other side of the country on a short week, and that's just simply not going to cut it when you have those old superstar kind of player. And then the icing on the cake is the fact that this game is played on turf, and this is the thing that I was worried coming into this one. If you're in Vancouver, is the fact that I know Messi have said that he's okay with playing on turf, but we know that when you have these big name superstar players, they usually don't like to play on turf, and that especially again add to the schedule congestion that Inter Miami has, and then also add to the fact that Copa America is around the corner. Messi will definitely want to stay sharp and hope he doesn't suffer an injury throughout before that Copa America starts. This is understandable why Inter Miami decided to not put their superstar, but I can also get why fans are absolutely furious about this. And there's really no good side I can take from this. I can't really say which side is on the wrong and which side is on the right. It's just kind of an unfortunate situation, and now I'm just hoping that those fans that basically pay outrageous price can actually show up in this game, because I think that would be dumb if you pay like $300 to watch this game and you don't even show up just because Messi didn't play. Like, I mean, you bought the ticket, you might as well just go and watch this game and not waste like a lot of money. And before you ask, well, they can just basically resell those tickets. You're still gonna lose a lot of money. Like, now you're just basically reselling a $300 ticket for what, like $25 or $30, as is usually the price I think to go to Whitecaps game. Well, maybe that's a little cheap. Maybe it's a little bit higher than that. You're still gonna suffer a loss on that. So I think if I was in that situation, if I was a Whitecaps fan and I pay a lot of money to watch this, and even though I'm upset the fact that Messi is not going to play in this one, I would still attend the games because I want to support the Whitecaps. But even if as a casual fans, I would still attend it because again, yes, I know you're not going to see those players, but you might as well just attend the games, even if you're going to suffer a bit of a loss. Though again, not everybody has that kind of mindset that I've said. But anyway, talk about this game itself. Besides talk about all the controversy that is going on. So this is the first ever meeting between both of these teams, and Vancouver. Obviously, they have definitely been going for a bit of a slump. I mean, after an amazing start for Vanni Sartini side, they have really started to slump to a point where they're pretty close in terms of dropping below the red line with a 5-4-4 record. Whereas Inter Miami, they're the best team in the league right now with a 9-4-2 record. But again, with the way that they decide to rest their player, this is also where if you're the Whitecaps, I mean I know it sucks the fact that you're not going to be playing against those big players, but it could be a blessing in disguise because we talk about Inter Miami. They are a team that without Messi, this is a complete different team. They've only won once this season in six games without Messi. And now you add to the factor that even some of these big name players that's not going to be there could be a chance that Vancouver could get all 3 points in this one against Miami, and that's something not a lot of team is able to say. So again, as much as it's a bit of a hit in terms of the consumer, and Vancouver, by the way, they said that they're going to at least give fans half price in terms of concession and even give free food to fans, which I think that's more than they needed to do. They could have easily said they won't do anything about it, and I know that would upset people because of it, but I also think it's not really something that again it's completely out of their control and it's something they necessarily had to do. But again, going back to this game itself, this is a big opportunity for them to get all 3 points, especially with the way that again they have been slipping in these last couple of weeks. They want to get themselves back to winning ways. This is a chance to do so against a Messi-less Inter Miami team and against an Inter Miami team that pretty much will be playing their B team coming into this game. Now, that being said, I am pretty much done now talking about all of these games for match week number 16. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games and also let me know in the comments below your prediction for all of these games from match week number 15 that is. Of course, we're going to do the review on Sunday and then part 2 of course on Monday. And we're going to do the preview too. I'll probably do the preview maybe on Wednesday because I do have something to do on Tuesday night or maybe even on Monday night if I have time to do so. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this preview. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.